Hello, this is TechMan88 and this is my selection sorter. So what this does is you have some categories set up here which just have a single item of each type that you want to make in that part of that category. And then what happens is it picks the items out of the input chest and puts them all over in this destination chest, which is just a row of chests. There's nothing behind here. So each category over here, it corresponds to these destination chests over here. So that's wood, that's wood, that's all the redstone components. Then directly across, this will be all the redstone components, etc. all the way down, all 15 categories, which all have 27 items apiece. This might remind you of Tango Tek's multi-item sorter, whatever it's called, because it has these kind of categories in the back. But there's a big difference here in that it doesn't mean you don't have to leave an item behind, which I think would get pretty annoying. Like you try and take out a stack and then, I don't know, maybe another item flows in or something. I don't know, I've never really used that. But it's much nicer when you can just take a bunch of stacks out at once. The other advantage over that system is that it's pretty much completely silent. It can be made completely silent, but I have basically one monostable using a piston, and that's a nice indicator anyway, so I'm just going to keep that the way it is. Another advantage of this is that it works at hopper speed, which is 250% faster than the Tango original version, which has probably been improved upon. But that is definitely worth noting if you'd like to sort items quickly. So how would you use this, practically speaking? Over here, these are the destination chests. These are just going to be filled with items that you've selected for that category. And you can arrange this in different ways. I just chose this way because it's pretty easy and more clear what's going on with the analog line above. So basically, what's really nice about this is you can go down here and take out, basically select items that you want to put in a certain category. So I'm just pulling out glass now. Okay, so you got your items, and say you want the very first category here to be your glass category, so I'm just going to put all those into here. So I'm going to advance it. Okay, now it's switched to this last category, and it's already started pulling out. Pulling, pulling, pulling. And now it's going to start pulling items from this chest, and I'm just going to speed it way up again so you can see it better. And this is what I've shown in a previous video. Now it's pulling out all the pink glass. And then switch to the next category, which is orange glass. So now what you do is you can go through again and just pick out all the items that you forgot. And this is really nice, I think, because you don't have to go in behind the system. You can just go in front right here and just pick out everything that you forgot the last time. I think I got it all right. And these should all be single categories. It's not going to break it if you have two of one item. It'll just be slower. I'll just say this one is going to be this glass over here. Then I can go like redstone. But now, as you can see, it's pulled all of those items out that I had selected into categories. So now I'll do a couple more. So now it's just finishing up. It's almost done sorting all the categories. So you saw the work I put into setting up the categories, and it was relatively simple. I mean, it takes a little bit of work to just pull out a single item of each type and stick it up in the chest up there. But this I feel is one of the greatest advantages of this system, is that you just have all the unsorted items down here, and you can just put them in straight into a chest up here without running around the back of your base. Now I'm going to try to explain the basic mechanism of how this sorter works. The basic concept is you have this filled up with water bottles, and then the first item can optionally be filled up with a sortable item. So in this case, there's carpet in here, and there's carpet up here, so it pulls out the items from there. And I'm just going to run it, and you can see this number here is decreasing, and this is stacking to 2 and then quickly getting pulled out. So I'm actually pausing the game, and I can run it one tick at a time. And I'll step through this slowly. Just stepping manually here. And I think a couple sorters work in a similar fashion, where you control both the hopper pulling out and the hopper pushing into it. And of course, in this case, there's 2 hoppers pushing into it. These are the items you want to sort out, and these are, these are the items you want to pull out of the input chest. This is the input chest, and this over here is the potion chest, the unstackable filler items. And of course, the point of that is just to turn this thing with 5 slots, turn it into 1 slot. So try and pause it as it's switching categories. So now the goal is, well, actually the first thing that happens is that it will detect that it finished that category. So in a moment we'll see a potion get pulled out. So like there's a potion in here, now it'll get pulled out to below. So now a potion came out, and that'll turn this signal up, this redstone here. It'll turn that up to 3. Yeah, you can see it's 3 power level, and that's enough to power a whole bunch of stuff going on below. And well, one thing here is to pull out a potion so that that potion doesn't end up in the sorted line of items. Like this down here, this is the carpet that just got pulled out. I have it labeled. It's just one long string of that carpet being pulled out. So this redstone torch just tells it to pull this this potion back and recycle it. Another part of that line, it just comes back here and triggers these droppers, which send it back up. That's just a matter of convenience. You can use the same redstone line, because each time a potion is pulled out, it'll also pulse that line. And the last thing that happens, this is, as I said, this is a lot of stuff happening at once. So this hopper down here that detected a potion, you can't see it anymore because it got pulled out, but it's still powering this redstone line up to 3, and that comes down into this comparator, which this is kind of a weird monostable. It's a fast acting one. So the comparator reads the value, it powers this redstone right here, and also powers this repeater, and that comes back and disables the comparator. So this works to shorten a kind of short pulse into an even shorter pulse. And that line from that comes back here and triggers both this repeater and turns off this redstone. So yeah, that's a lot of stuff happening at once. So when this turns off, it's going to allow this carpet to flow into the empty slot. And you'll notice that this redstone line is on. And this redstone line, this hopper is actually disabled now, but the redstone's turned off. It has a delay of 1 tick. So now this carpet here is going to flow into this chest, and instantly it's pulled out another item from above. So that was 64, now it's 63. I've ripped out the very core of the system, and if you're really interested in improving on what I've done here, this would be probably a good place to start. And I've done some other modifications of this to try and make it faster, but just to show that this is a basic component of the system, I've ripped it out. So now I'm going to try and sort out oak. And again, that's the input chest, that's the output chest. So what we should see here is it'll pull out just the oak planks, and we'll end up with 16 items down here. So both the category item and the sorted items get pulled out into here. And that's exactly what happened. And then what you would do with this is that you would pull out the first item and then allow the rest of the items to flow into the sorted chests. And I just, again, pulled this out in case you'd like to try and develop it. I'll get a little bit better look at it here. And I guess I'll try and do a world download so you don't have to try and copy this from here. And of course you might miss the fact that you have to fill these up with a bunch of unstackable items just to make this work correctly. I already covered the core of the system down here, so now I'm going to explain some of the things surrounding it that make it work and make it to operate with separate categories. And generally the components, these are the destination chests, and there's an analog line going across it. The analog line is what determines which chests it'll flow into. And on the other side, there's the exact same thing a couple times. So there's an analog line right here, and then below it, there's another analog line. And in each of these cases, they're up against hoppers. So essentially, there's going to be one of these 15 spots that's power level 0, and that's going to allow the hoppers next to it, adjacent to it, to be active. So the next part is, how does it get a new set of items to sort out into this chest down here, the category chest? So what happens is a couple events. It's about to run right now. It's going to put this clock to 0, which triggers it to send in a new set of items. So that signal comes up to here, and it decrements this clock. This clock is now at 4, and it triggered, and now it's at 3. And that signal propagates out of here to both these two analog lines, because you have a comparator going into this block, which is above and below redstone lines. And then also here, it'll change this value over here. It's the exact same thing, just mirrored. And the next thing that happens is it triggers a keep alive over here, a little clock, a fader clock. And this signifies to turn off this torch, and that's going to disable this repeater. And now this entire redstone line below is disabled. So there's a hopper behind here. I'm not gonna break that block to show it. But this hopper down here it's already pulled out one item. So what happens is all the items get pulled out of here. I'm just going to turn it on, and they get pushed into this chest down here. Yeah, you can see that happen. And now it's going through the items and pulling out from this chest the items that match it. Here's Maizuma Games sorter. So in essence, it tries to take this one type of item and tries to sort it into a bunch of categories at once. And these categories are stored in these droppers over here. So there's 18 items per category. I mostly wanted to mention this because it has a variable sorter like I have. It's obviously using a different method. It's using more like a standard overflow-proof sorter, but it can replace the item, which I think is definitely worth mentioning. Just a couple odds and ends of this system. This right here is a pre-sorter to take out any non-stackable items. So they will trigger this comparator up to 3, and that'll disable this redstone torch down here. And there's another part of this, which is kind of weird, but it's a hopper facing downward into this other hopper below it, and then 2 comparators, which seems to be the magic ingredient to make this not pulse like crazy. And that just sends a signal back to here, to a hopper that's pulling items out of the input chest. This right here is the input chest. This is optional. And the unstackable items will be put into here. Another part is this main clock, which the function of this is to allow items to flow through this hopper chain right here, and also through this hopper chain right here. So you don't want to switch categories before you're done moving items to the appropriate destination chests over here and over here. So this just keeps it out in the same category until it's ready to switch and everything has gone into the appropriate chests. And this is powered by this kind of funky redstone clock. It's a very reliable clock. I would definitely recommend this type of thing. It's a normal redstone torch clock, then fed into a monostable using a comparator and a repeater. And then this next thing, which reduces it to signal strength of 1, and that can decrement the clock by 1 every time. This is the end of the video. I might want to do more on this system. I recorded a lot more footage, and it got to be too long, so I excluded it. So let me know if you want more on this system, and I'm going to build this up in my survival world because this is about what I want there. Anyway, thank you for watching, and goodbye.